Hey friends, it's time for our last chapter in Ivy and Bean. You know these girls, they've been planning to put a spell on Bean's sister Nancy so Bean wouldn't get in trouble. And yesterday it seemed to work. Nancy was dancing all over the place just like they had planned. But today we're to the final chapter, and this chapter is No Dessert. I think I have an idea of who has no dessert and why, but let's read to find out. Do you have an idea? No dessert, said Bean. No videos for a week, but at least they didn't make me stay in my room. Ivy was sitting next to Bean on her front porch. It was almost dark. They had watched the bugs flying around the streetlight. I don't think they're really mad, said Ivy. You don't? They had seemed pretty mad to Bean. They have to act mad so they'll seem fair to your sister, said Ivy. But your mom had this little teeny smile on her face when she pulled Nancy out of the pit. She thought it was funny. Bean smiled too, remembering it was funny. It was great. Nancy says she's never going to speak to either of us ever again, and she took back the coloring book she gave me. Well, she never spoke to me before today, so that won't be any different to me. It'll be better for me, but I bet she doesn't stick to it. Bean yawned. Oh, it had been a big day. She turned to Ivy. Do you think the spell is what made her dance? Of course. Ivy sounded very sure, but after a minute she said, I didn't have time to say the spell, really. I just sort of thought it at the last second. Bean stared into the shadowy yard. Maybe that's why she didn't dance for very long, because you only thought the spell instead of saying it. Next time, I'll say it. You're gonna do it again? On who? Bean asked. I was thinking about that Mrs. Trance, said Ivy. Bean pictured Mrs. Trance kicking up her feet on the edge of a muddy pit. It would be a beautiful sight. Can you teach me to burp like that? Asked Bean. Sure, Ivy said. Maybe I'll try something new on Mrs. Trance, like a storm of grasshoppers. Is that a hard one? No, but we have to start with a lot of grasshoppers, said Ivy. It seems like all the spells have bugs in them, said Bean. Not all of them, said Ivy. Potions don't. Potions. That sounded fun. Let's make a potion, Bean said. Okay, Ivy said. Tomorrow we'll make potions. And here's where they're imagining Mrs. Trance dancing around the edge of a pit. I know what, said Bean. Tomorrow, let's fix up your lab in your room. Then we can make potions. She pictured a lab with shelves of little bottles. She and Ivy would wear goggles. Ivy sat up straighter. Yeah, that'll be good. We'll dump the dressing room and get some shelves. Shelves with little bottles and maybe a counter. Bean! Bean's mother came out onto the front porch. There you are. It's almost bath time. Ivy, do you want me to walk you home? Okay, said Ivy. But Bean's mom sat down beside Bean and looked at the nighttime sky. You girls have certainly had a big day, haven't you? Bean leaned against her mother's arm. Tomorrow, we're going to make a lab in Ivy's room. You are you? Said Bean's mom. What for? Potions, said Ivy. What kind of potions? Asked Bean's mom. Secret potions, said Ivy. There was a silence. Then Bean's mom said, No matches, no poison, no explosions, no deadly fumes, no bugging Nancy. Is that clear? Ivy and Bean looked at each other and rolled their eyes. Weren't you the one who was always telling me to play with her? Said Bean. Wasn't this all your idea in the first place? Bean's mother smiled at them in the dark. The light on Ivy's porch came on, and Ivy's mom stepped out the door. She waved across the street. Time to come in, honey. Down the stairs and across the circle she came in the moonlight. Ivy stood up. So did Bean. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. And the day after that, Bean added in her mind. Ivy, holding her mother's hand in the middle of the street, turned around to look at Bean. And the day after that, she said. So it's like they can read each other's minds, right? It's like that when you get to be good friends with somebody. You think the same thing sometimes. So, can't wait to read the next story in this series. This was actually book 1 in the series of Ivy and Bean. And sad to say, I don't have book 2 at home, but I have another great book to start with you when we get back from spring break. So this one's all about animals. So I hope you have a great time. See you next story time.